Well, next came the group of, quote, 55 of the nation's leading bioethicists, close quote, who did file an amicus brief in support of Michael Schiavo's action in Florida Supreme Court, where Schiavo attempted to block Governor Bush's intervention. The amicus brief begins with a statement of what they call the 4 central values that arise from the moral traditions of medicine and nursing and from the ethical, religious, and legal traditions of our society. Well, that's quite a bit of authority to pack in there with just... now, what's the source of all this? Why, the Hastings Center guidelines on the termination of life-sustaining treatment and the care of the dying. H.L. Mencken once defined a judge as a law student who grades his own examination papers. Well, what are the 4 central values? 1, beneficence. Oh, I think I'm going to cry. 2, the integrity of healthcare professionals. 3, justice. 4, personal autonomy. Well, of course, from a moral point of view, none of these can stand as a central value until their modes of expression and resulting effects are specified. Consider the amplification of the value of autonomy. They say this about it, quote, "We respect human dignity by granting individuals the freedom to make choices in accordance with their own values," close quote. Of course, it's patently false that respect for human dignity requires the undeliberated and unevaluated permission to act in accordance with one's own values. We'd have to know what the values are. Jeffrey Dahmer's dietary preferences might actually have been grounded in a certain deeply held, sincere religious conviction. Not good enough. No, sorry about that. That you're sincere about this only makes matters worse. The law itself, not to mention moral philosophy, takes cognizance of just those values in seeking to judge their worth and such respect as they might deserve. So too with the integrity of healthcare professionals who, according to the amicus brief, quote, "have a right to remain true to their own conscientious, moral, and religious beliefs," close quote. Now, moral and religious beliefs can be conscientious, but entirely unacceptable within a setting established to foster health and well-being. The Santeria expressed their religious conscientiousness by bloody sacrificial rites performed on animals. Now, surely members of the sect who just happen to be nurses or doctors could not plausibly claim the right to include Afro-Caribbean magic as part of a therapeutic regimen covered by Blue Cross, or at least not yet. The alleged right to remain true to one's moral or religious beliefs is, as with all other rights, bounded by considerations of time and place, statutory constraints, public safety, public decency. The list is really very long. Failure to address these boundaries directly reduces the bioethicists' core values to pieties, just platitudes. Well, they're not platitudes. Well, as might be expected, the amicus brief rises to its greatest rhetorical height on the wings of personal autonomy. For, quote, "No legal right is more important in American society." Now, how on earth could they know that? Do you see? This is a category mistake. There are just a lot of people living here. There isn't an American society over and against Jack and Jill. No legal right is more important in American society than the right of personal autonomy, each person's fundamental right to the sole control of his or her person, close quote. The fragment quoted within this passage that I've just given you is not from the Constitution of the United States or the Bill of Rights, It's not from the Federalist. It's from a Florida guardianship case. That's where that quote comes from. It's in re guardianship of Browning, 568, Florida, 1990. It should have been in some insurance case in New Jersey, maybe, with a bicycle run over by a truck. And when we start talking about the core values of American society, it should be a trite case, not a serious one. As with so much of the impressionistic reasoning now featured in judicial proceedings, this passage, too, might have been better placed in an ethics primer, where it would give dangerous solace to the uncritical reader. One's next-door neighbor, if not a specialist in bioethics, and if queried on the subject, would surely be less than certain that there is no legal right more important than autonomy. One's neighbor would presumably place the highest premium on being secure in his life and property and in the lives of those closest to him. The basic rights set forth by Madison in the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution do not mention and arguably do not even envisage autonomy as a right. It is instead a power, it's a capacity, the use of which renders one fit for the judgments of law. In all, then, the 55 of our nation's leading authorities in bioethics shed no light and much fog over the issues in Schiavo. I am not being unfair to them here. Read the brief. It's very poorly done. It would be poorly done as a minor's thesis in philosophy by a student who had 6 credits in moral philosophy. Well, no, 6 credits in ethics, 3 of them in bioethics. Would write something like that. It was a terrible performance. Incredibly self-conscious, pompous, and stupid work. It's the sort of thing where if you have to sign it, you make up a name for yourself.